Imagine this, a tired doctor on a night train, just trying to get home with his young son. The ride seems normal until the train's brakes fail and the danger closes in. What if the real terror wasn't outside but hiding inside the car? This is a story of survival, betrayal, and a deadly secret that'll keep you on the edge of your seat. Just when you think you know what's coming, bam! You won't believe what happens next. Before we dive in, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Dropping a like and a comment is the least you can do to show some love. And like we always say, even if some stories seem the same, they ain't never the same when I'm the one telling them. The night train chugs through London, packed with strangers headed somewhere, anywhere but here. The conductor's voice cuts through the hum, calling out stops, demanding tickets. Among the restless crowd sits Dr. Louis Shayer, dragging the weight of a long day, clutching his young son Max. Louis drifts into sleep while Max kills time with his toys. Louis wakes with a start. The train hasn't moved an inch. Max, sharp as ever, breaks the silence. "Let's play rock, paper, scissors." Louis agrees, but only if Max promises to nap after. Just then, Louis's phone rings. The carriage is a mess of noise, so he steps into the quiet vestibule. A cold voice on the line drops the bomb. A disaster happened. Patients flood the hospital. They need Louis now. While on the call, Louis spots a friendly woman named Sarah chatting with Max. She plans events, and Max is all smiles until he knocks her coffee right onto her coat. Louis rushes back, apologizing and offering to pay for the cleaning. Sarah just laughs it off. "You could buy me a new coat," she jokes. "But hey, it's been a rough day anyway." They keep talking, the vibe easy and real. Max proudly shows Sarah his drawings, and she actually seems impressed. Then her phone rings, pulling her away. Louis, left alone, flips through a newspaper he snagged from a stranger nearby. Max's eyes catch a drunken passenger, Jankowski, showing off a magic trick, making a cigarette disappear like smoke in a dark alley. But John's face twists into something scary. Max quickly looks back to his dad. The conductor shows up, eyes the cigarette, and tells Jan to toss it. Sparks fly, not just from the cigarette. Everyone's watching, waiting for a fight to break loose. John finally flicks the cigarette away and storms off, confessing he's riding without a ticket. Max grabs his toy again and moves close to the door. Louis warns him it's not safe. Max ignores him. The door suddenly swings wide open. Louis lunges, snatching Max just in time before he falls into the unknown. Terrified, Louis yells, snatches the toy, and orders Max to sit tight. Louis takes a breath and softens his tone. He tells Max how close he came to real trouble and begs him to be more careful. Just then, the conductor swings by to check tickets again. He suggests seating Max in the L seat. "Safer," he says. Sarah jumps in, raising a sharper point. The door should have automatic locks. The conductor asks if Sarah is Max's mom. Max's voice drops low. "My mom's not around anymore." The train keeps rolling, but the crowd thins out with every stop. At one station, Louis spots a strange man carrying a helmet. The man steps off, but quickly comes back and slips into the vestibule. Louis and Max nod off briefly, and that's when the nightmare kicks off. Someone attacks the conductor. Louis wakes up at the next stop. He and Sarah realize they're the last passengers left in the carriage. The silence between them isn't awkward. They keep talking. Sarah admits she just broke up with her boyfriend. Her friends threw her a party in London to distract her. Louis grumbles about his thankless job. Then Sarah drops a line about the coffee stain on her coat, probably never coming out. It's clear she's fishing for Louis to keep his dry cleaning promise. And maybe something more. She tells him to rest a bit. She'll wake him before their stop. Then she pops in her headphones, lost in her music. Suddenly, Louis jerks awake. The train stopped fast. He looks out and sees a man in a bright jacket and someone hurt on the tracks. As the train starts moving again, Louis tells Sarah, "I'll be back soon," and heads to find the conductor. In the vestibule, Jan's lurking, the ticketless passenger from before, but the conductor, nowhere to be found. Then, a knock. Peter Carmichael steps out and asks what's up. Louis, worried, explains the injured man might have been hit by the train and that the conductor and driver need to know. Peter shrugs it off, says, "Call an ambulance." Louis makes the call and walks back to Sarah and Max, who are busy playing. At last, they near their stop, ready to get off. Louis asks a passenger, Elaine Middleton, if she's seen the driver or conductor. She shakes her head. No sign of either. As they say their goodbyes, Sarah leans in and kisses Louis goodbye, reminding him he's got her number. Then the train doesn't stop. Louis leaves Max and Sarah with Elaine and rushes to find the driver. On the way, he calls a colleague. He won't make it on time. He steps into the conductor's compartment, uses the intercom to reach the driver, and tells him they missed the stop and about the injured man on the tracks. The driver sounds cold, just asks how many passengers are left. Louis says 6, then the line cuts out. Louis digs through the conductor's stuff and finds some keys. He tries the rear door, locked tight. Peter catches him and warns, "Keep this up, and I'm calling the cops." Lewis snaps back, telling him the driver missed his stop. Then a horn blasts so loud it shakes the whole train. This isn't a joke. Lewis storms back to the carriage and yanks the emergency brake. Peter lunges to stop him, but Lewis pushes hard. Peter spots the train has already passed his stop and pulls another emergency brake. Neither brake budges. The train keeps racing forward like a bullet with no aim. Lewis and Peter pull every emergency brake lever they can find. Nothing moves. Jan shows up, looking lost and asking what's going on. Lewis eyes the brake pressure, dead flat. He suspects the man in the orange vest from earlier messed with them. Then Peter spots Jan's vest, the same bright orange under his jacket. Jan says he's a cleaner for the London Underground and swears he didn't leave the train or touch the brakes. Jan drops a bomb. Someone else, not the driver, is running this train and released the brake pressure. Peter and Lewis freeze. Peter calls the transport police. Lewis recalls the train can run both ways. Maybe the back locomotive is still working with brakes. Lewis tries the rear door again. Keys don't fit. Jan watches, confused. Why not just go to the driver? He wonders out loud. Peter shows up, warning them not to touch the door. They might mess up the police investigation. Jan shrugs and pulls the handle. The door isn't even locked. The passengers move to the empty driver's cabin at the back, while the train rushes past its last stop. Lewis hunts for the brake, but accidentally blasts the horn, a loud alarm to whoever's controlling the train. They pull every lever they can find, but soon face the hard truth. They can't stop this runaway. Peter tells everyone to trust the police. They can cut power to the rails and stop the train, but Lewis soon finds out the train runs on diesel. That makes it a whole different beast, not so easy to kill. Then Lewis spots a handbrake, a big wheel that actually turns. Slowly, the train drops from 70 to 50 miles per hour, grinding and sparking like it's bleeding out. The passengers finally breathe a sigh of relief, but just when hope flickers, the mystery driver slams the gas, pushing speed to 100 miles per hour, and suddenly, flames burst loose. Peter tries to stop Lewis and Jan, shouting that what they're doing is illegal. Instead, he gets punched hard in the face. The passengers twist the wheel back, stopping the sparks from lighting the train on fire. Back in the corridor, Lewis patches up Peter's wounds. Lane suddenly spots the danger. A manually operated level crossing is coming up fast. If the police don't act, this train will smash into whatever's waiting on those tracks. Peter keeps calling the cops, desperate for help. Max senses the tension, and Lewis quietly explains the brake disaster to him. The train races toward the crossing. Passengers clutch hope like a lifeline, but no miracle comes. The train crashes into a car at full speed, sending metal and glass flying, then barrels forward like a ghost with no mercy. The police arrive too late to do a damn thing. After the crash, Elaine starts feeling sick. Lewis quickly realizes she's having a heart attack. He tries to bring her back for nearly 10 minutes. But sometimes, even the best don't win. The passengers beg Lewis to stop trying and help with the train instead. Lewis and Jan grab a fire extinguisher and an axe, smashing at the first of two doors to the driver's cab. The door holds strong at first. Finally, Lewis breaks the glass and climbs inside. The sight freezes his blood. The conductor is dead, choked right there. He pounds on the engineer's door, shouting for help to stop the train. Silence answers back. The train's on a runaway path, and no one's pulling the brakes. Lewis peers through the dirty glass and spots a helmet in the cab, the same one worn by that strange man who got off earlier and slipped into the engineer's seat. He tries to reach the man with words, even mentioning his young son, but the stranger stays silent, cold as steel. Frustration boils over. Lewis pounds the glass with the fire extinguisher and axe, but it won't budge. The glass is tougher than a bad breakup. Meanwhile, the stranger blasts the horn non-stop, yelling at Lewis to quit his smashing. Jan steps in, cool as ice, telling Lewis to calm down and think. They need a new plan, fast. The passengers shuffled back to their compartments, tension thick as smoke. Peter shared that the police confirmed the man on the tracks was the real engineer, but Lewis was dead sure he saw that stranger lurking on the train, creeping toward London Bridge. Lewis laid it out cold. This stranger likely strangled the conductor, yanked the emergency brake while it still worked, then let the air out before sliding into the engineer's seat. Peter's eyes went cold with memory. 30 years ago, a train smashed into the buffer stop instead of slowing down. 40 souls and the engineer died in a twisted pile of steel and regret. Rumor had it the engineer meant to crash the train on purpose. Now it looked like history was about to repeat itself. The man with the helmet was playing a deadly game, and the end was coming fast. After some time, Sarah digs through a technical manual, hoping to find a way out. They still have 20 minutes before the line ends, but the clock feels like a noose tightening. Jan's patience snaps. He suggests lighting a fire near the engineer's cabin to smoke the stranger out. Peter shoots it down fast, remembering a nightmare crash years ago where diesel tanks blew and everyone burned alive. That fire'll kill us all before we reach the end, he warns. returns, voice low and steady. Before things boil over, Sarah cuts in with a sharp fact about the coupler, that link between train cars. Jan's eyes light up. Turns out he's no stranger to trains himself, explaining the machinery like it's old news. Sarah and John decide to try uncoupling the cars, hoping to activate the rear manual brakes and coast to a full stop. The others back the risky plan. The coupler hides in a tough-to-reach spot, forcing John to think about going outside to do the job. Peter suggests waiting until Kurst, where the tracks get rough and the train will naturally slow. John doubts the stranger will slow down on his own, but Peter fires back. If the train doesn't slow, it might overturn. The stranger wants this nightmare to end, but flipping the train here won't be as messy as slamming into the buffer stop at the end, Peter says coldly. Jan nods, lights up his cigarette trick one more time, and steels himself for what's next. Jan finally braves the freezing wind, his body pushed to the edge by the bitter cold. He fights to free the coupler, every second feeling like a battle with the devil himself. Louis, watching from the window, sees Jan nearly swept away and bursts the door open, stretching out a steady hand. Jan grabs hold just as Sarah screams. They're barreling into a tunnel. With a fierce pull, Louis drags Jan back inside just moments before darkness swallows them. Jan wakes with a sore, dislocated arm, but alive. Then, almost like a cruel joke, the train grinds to a stop inside the tunnel. The police had set up sandbags, forcing the runaway beast to halt. Hope fades fast when they find out the tunnel is just a single track, and the door won't open all the way. Louis realizes his son Max might just squeeze through the gap, but Max begs with tears. No way he wants to crawl into that dark tunnel alone. Before the argument can grow, the train jolts back to life, pushing forward with 10 minutes left on the clock. Jan throws out a wild plan to blow the coupler apart, but no explosives are around. Then Louis has a desperate idea. He shoves a fire extinguisher among the luggage between the cars and lights it up, praying it will blow. Passengers duck behind seats, gripping hope like a lifeline. The explosion roars, but the coupler holds tight. Approaching the blast site, Louis finds a way inside to reach the coupler. He tries to rip it apart with his bare hands, but the metal's blistering hot. Peter rushes over with a fire axe, smashing through the heat and grime. Together, they tear the cars apart, but Peter slips, plunging into the gap and landing hard on the tracks. John and Sarah sprint to the manual brake, desperate to slow the runaway train. Meanwhile, Louis is trapped in a car ablaze from leaking fuel. Just seconds before the explosion tears through, Louis leaps to safety, barely making it to another car. It's likely the stranger who took the engineer's place didn't make it out of that fiery blast. Jan and Sarah, bruised but unbroken, finally manage to stop the runaway train. Louis lies unconscious, the world slipping away in smoke and sirens. When he wakes, Sarah is carrying him outside, the night sky filled with flashing police helicopters and the burning wreck of their nightmare. She jokes, "Looks like you finally made it to the hospital. Better late than never." The few survivors share a shaky celebration, but one thing stays buried in the smoke. The true identity of that shadowy engineer remains a mystery. What would you do if you were trapped on a runaway train with danger closing in, and the real enemy was right beside you? Would you fight to save everyone or run for your own life? Drop a like, subscribe, and leave a comment. I want to hear how you'd handle this high-speed nightmare.